Hey y'all, hey, it's Galanda D, and today I want to talk to you all about auditory sensory overload. Okay, so earlier this week I was traveling, and on the transportation I was on, they were playing like talk radio, and the speaker where I was in this van was right next to my ear, y'all. Right next to my ear. I had no control over the volume or anything, and I could feel myself, starting to get overloaded. So I decided to put on my earbuds and listen to music, which ended up being listening for like 5 hours. And you might say, okay, Galando, what is the big deal? The big deal is, me personally, I am not accustomed to having consistent auditory input. I sit in silence quite a bit of the time. I mean, I do listen to music occasionally. I do, watch videos or movies occasionally, but the large bulk of my time is spent in silence, right? So having not only the speaker in my ear, and then having to use other sound to then drown out the speaker that I can focus on, it made me say, look, you're not the only person that this happens to. You need to share what's going on. So that's what I want to talk about today. So I have a bunch of notes because there's some really key things that I don't want to leave out when sharing to you all about sensory overload, okay? So, and also I'm going to make sure that I give you actionable steps that you can use, right? So, first of all, what happens to your brain? And what happens to your brain when you are getting overloaded? Whatever senses, may it be smell, taste, in this case it was auditory for me. So there's a few key brain areas that are affected. First is the thalamus, right? This is where the part of your brain that is like the gatekeeper of your senses. And so when you are overloaded, your thalamus is struggling, right? Struggling with the abundance of sensory input into your brain, right? So first of all, your thalamus, your gatekeeper, is like, whoa, this is too much coming after me all at the same time. The next area of your brain is your amygdala, right? This is your fight or flight sense, right? And when this is activated, this can cause anxiety. This can cause a panic attack. It's just heightened stress all the way around. So here you are, you're having this overload experience. Your gatekeeper is like, a lot is going on. And then your amygdala is now lit up. Like, hey, what we got to do? Be still, run, fight, what we got to do, right? Then is your prefrontal cortex, and this is the area where your rational thinking, right, takes place. This is where your decision making is, right? Again, when it's overloaded, it's difficult to respond rationally. It is struggling to make good decisions when your senses are overloaded. All these are part of what we call the autonomic nervous system, right? Which controls the overall of this fight, flight, or freeze, right? Some of the symptoms you may feel are increased heart rate, right? Hyper alertness, tension in various parts of your body, restlessness, and in some cases, you might altogether shut down, right? So sensory overload is a serious thing, and you don't have to have a certain mental condition, so to speak, right? You don't have to be diagnosed with anything to have sensory overload. Anybody can have it. And understanding that anybody could experience it and how it affects your brain is important to let you know that there are ways and tools and things that you can do in order to mitigate it, right? In order to mitigate it. So, y'all know, right, that mindfulness is my jam, right? Mindfulness and its ability for you to identify your present moment awareness. This means not ignoring when you feel this extra tension in your body, right? This is noticing when you're starting to feel panicky because you're in the moment, right? So mindfulness is one of the skills that can help you regulate when you're having this auditory overload, right? Your emotional awareness also is a component, right? And it says, hey, I am noticing these triggers, these responses from myself. And because I am noticing it, instead of simply reacting, right, I can choose a response to it, right? So instead of you being overwhelmed and you lashing out at someone, yelling at someone, or even shutting down, you can say, okay, I feel the signs. What are my tools to mitigate it, right? The goal with using mindfulness as well as emotional awareness is to provide you some space, some mental and emotional space to make better decisions, right? So, what are some key things that we can do? Now, I'm going to start with what I did. I selected intentional listening because I was having emotional overload. So I did, instead of having to listen to this talk radio at a very loud tone that was disturbing to me, I decided to instead put on my headphones, right, and use other sounds to filter out that other stuff, right? So it's intentional listening with sound filtering. Now, if you don't have headphones or the ability to play some other sound over top of it, you can just focus on one single sound, right? That's part or one of the techniques of sound filtering is just to focus on one sound when there's a whole bunch going on. Like I'm outside right now, and if I wanted to sound filter, I could just focus on the sounds of the cars, right? There are some people working nearby. I can focus on, me hearing their tools, right? So that's one thing that you can do. Why is this helpful? Because it helps to retrain your brain to prioritize what is most important, okay? It helps to retrain your brain instead of being scattered and all over the place to focus on what's most important, right? Y'all know my favorite is the breath, right? And I feel like breath work is one of the quickest ways that you can use to regulate your nervous system. Like it's scientific, y'all. I didn't make it up, right? And so what you can do is this technique called the 4-7-8, right? This technique says inhale for 4 counts, then hold your breath for 7 counts, and then slowly exhale for 8 counts, right? 4, 7, 8. Inhale, hold, exhale. So let me give you a little demonstration of the 4, 7, 8, okay? So we're going to inhale. Okay, So I inhaled for 4 counts, I held it for 7 counts, and then I exhaled for 8 counts. Now, I realize that that might be a difficult task for some people, right? So you can shorten it. It doesn't have to be 4, 7, 8, okay? It could be 3, 5, 6. Inhale for 3, hold for 5, exhale for 6, okay? So either way, but the base technique is 4, 7, 8. But if you find that to be difficult, you can do inhale for 3, hold for 5, and exhale for 6, and repeat, right? One of my favorite ways is to use breath work. Another strategy or tool that you can use is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, right? So the idea of this method is to help you shift away your focus from what is causing the overload, okay? Retrain, redirect, remap your attention to other things as to minimize what the overload is happening, okay? So, 5, locate 5 things that you can see. 4, notice 4 things that you can feel. And you might be like, Alonda, really? 4 things I can? You can feel a bracelet. Maybe you feel your hair. Maybe you feel your clothes. Maybe you feel what you're sitting on. All those things can be used to feel. 3 are things that you can hear. Yes, you might be experiencing auditory overload, but you want to focus and count 3 things that you can hear, 2 things that you can smell, and 1 thing that you can taste, right? Now, the taste, depending on where you are, may or may not be applicable because maybe you didn't eat anything recently, or maybe you have a snack and you can use that for your taste, right? But again, 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste, right? That's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, right? The key here is to continue your mindfulness practices and your emotional awareness to give you the pause. I'm going to let this pass. To give you the pause and to give you the space to select a tool that will be best for you to use to respond to your overload instead of your reaction to your overload. So, what I'd like to offer to you is next time you're feeling overload, whether it's auditory or some other sense, is to try one of these techniques, right? Sound filtering, the breath work, or the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. Once you try it, then come back and tell me about it. You know what? You really don't even have to wait until you experience sensory overload. Just pick one of the methods and try it, because practicing it before you need it, right, starts to help train the muscles, the mental and emotional muscles, so that when you do need to use it, it comes a little bit easier for you. Okay? So that is my share for today with my own auditory experience and how I used one of these methods to combat it. But at the root, it was the mindfulness and emotional awareness that carried me through. Until next time, bye-bye.